Good evening, everyone. We are going to present the second edition of the Global Expert Talks. It's an initiative between Università di Studi Napoli Partenope, Dipartimento di Studi Aziendali e Quantitativi, and MIT Sloan School of Management. The Global Expert Talks is a program that is part of a wider agreement between Università Partenope and MIT that includes a Master in Entrepreneurship and Management, which has reached now the second edition, which is a master that prepares students to become possibly entrepreneurs and support our country in creating a new generation of entrepreneurs. And we have an exchange of researchers that spend a period of time at MIT to improve their research skills. And part of this program, there are 7-8 talks every year. What are these global expert talks? Global expert talks are meetings that we have with MIT experts and Italian experts on specific topics. And what we try to do is to foresee what's going to happen in specific topics like tonight's meeting. We have had already a meeting with Michael Cusumano and Riccardo Monti. Michael Cusumano is one of the top world's expert in platform. He's basically the one who introduced the concept of platform economy. And tonight we have another guest. The guest of tonight's are Bill Aulet and Valeria Fascione. Why Bill and Valeria? What puts them in common? Bill and Valeria, together with myself and a group of colleagues from Università Partenope, were part of a program at MIT Sloan, which is called Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. We did a great job together with Bill and other colleagues from MIT, with Valeria. And what we did, we learned many topics, and this experience, which was aimed at supporting countries, at introducing the MIT model in their own areas. We have done some experience with them, and we have brought something back and done some experiences here in Napoli and in our region, Regione Campania. So the reason why Valeria and Bill are here together is because they work together. We work together, all together on this topic. So what we try to choose topics which are hot topics, on themes that are under a great change, are undergoing a great change. And so the support of MIT scholars and experts is to learn how we can cope with these themes. So let me now introduce more deeply the two guests of tonight. We have Bill. Bill Aulet is a game changer in the entrepreneurship way of teaching and practicing firm. Before being a professor, he has been named Practice Professor of Entrepreneurship, Sloan School of Management, 2017. He has been an entrepreneur. And before being an entrepreneur, he has been a manager. So manager, entrepreneur, and then serial entrepreneur, more than one companies. And what is great is that he has created value not only for himself, but also for the shareholder who trusted him. So that's a great thing. What I would say is that he is currently regularly on Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Sloan Management Review, and other incredible magazines and journals. And he's also on the board of a NASDAQ companies like MTech. But what most importantly, he is the inventor of a new format of supporting startups. He indeed is the managing director of the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship, basically inside the MIT campus. This model, as we will somehow tell us, reinvented the way startups afford their growth process. On the other side, we have Valeria. Valeria is currently the Regional Minister for Research, Innovation and Startups. And she started as a manager at Città della Scienza, which is the Neapolitan first innovation hub. She later managed the regional industrial development programs, and also worked for the national government, working on the China-Italy Innovation Forum, which was the first and the most important Italian platform for promoting and facilitating research and development between these two great countries. She introduced the first Fab Lab in Regione Campania together with the Italian US General Councilor in Naples. And but most importantly, I would say that she, in her role of minister since 2015, has introduced a series of actions that are aimed at creating the condition for generating a new cohort of startups that will eventually integrate our traditional companies in our region. She has done a great job with both in her role of minister by working and providing grants for firms, technology transfer. She created also a tech transfer platform. And she also worked very hard on some initiatives together with Novartis and Banca Sella in the field of accelerators. So now let me stop and give the floor to the experts. Otherwise, I will bore you tonight. And let me start with Bill. So let me give the word to Bill, and I ask Bill to help us understand first what is the big change that has brought, the innovation in the startup support model. Incubators, accelerators, what can you tell us about it? Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Marco. It's an honor, and I'm humbled to be here to talk about this. I don't feel like a global expert. I still just feel like an entrepreneur. But, you have a huge fan here amongst us in what you all are doing in Campania. Valeria, yourself, Professor Panetti, Eva, and Michelle Simoni. And we all just want to support you. We have the advantage of being at MIT with all these people coming in, all this history and legacy. You're building it up for yourself, and kudos to you. Very, very well done. And thanks to the global MIT Sloan global team for pulling this off. So let's just talk about incubators, accelerators, and everything else. We have a unique opportunity here to analyze these at MIT. While I'm what I call an accidental professor, I'm a real entrepreneur. I still have had the great fortune to work in an academic institution which brings rigor to things, and that's what I want to talk about. So let's go to the slides. Do I share the slides, or will someone there share the slides? To structure it, I'll try to do this in 15, 20 minutes. Is that okay, Marco?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So the slides, should I pull up the slides?
Oops.
If I should pull up the slides, I will. Let me. Well, let me start talking through them, because do you see the slides, Marco?
No, not really. Just 1 second ago, yes, but now no.
Oh, okay. So let me do that. All right. Now do you see the slides?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So let me just do this then. All right. So the topic that I'm going to talk about is incubators, and this is let me just reset this. Sorry, everybody. Duplicate slideshow. Okay. The topic I want to talk about is incubators. And, at MIT, we're engineers, and above all else, before you start to solve a problem, you have to understand, and define your terms. What do we mean by an incubator? And so what I want to do is just, look at this concept of incubators was extremely popular in the 2000s and into 2010 and a few years after that. And in 2012, I remember looking carefully at this to see if this was something that could really help us here to create more entrepreneurs. And the concept of incubators was profound. It was, you could bring startups together and they could save on rent. They could, learn from each other. They could find focus. They could, decrease their costs and get one of the big things was you could get shared services. You could get payroll. You could get space. You could get all the things that it's economies of scale that you get through incubation. So you could focus just specifically on that one thing that would make you successful. Product market fit. How do I come out with a product and bring it? How do I come out with a product that the customer wants that will then be scalable in the marketplace? So at the time, everybody was opening up incubators. It was a big deal. And now you might know in Cambridge, a place called CIC, which is now called the Cambridge Innovation Center. Well, they conveniently changed the I in Cambridge Innovation Center from incubator to innovation. But this was a big movement, and in concept it was going to be very helpful to startups, and we all bought into it. And so we chased the hypothesis. We chased the hypothesis in society, and I remember at MIT we chased that hypothesis as well. And fortunately, in 2012, there was a building here that was being shut down. And what we did was we moved into that, being very entrepreneurial, and said, we just need more space, and we want to have a place where all the entrepreneurs can come, as opposed to spread out in the coffee shops and who knows where else throughout Cambridge. And if we can only bring them together, they can learn from each other. And so we created something at the time called the Beehive Cooperative. And it immediately became popular. People started moving in. One of the reasons they started moving in is because the rent was free for a time period until the building was knocked down or completely renovated. It wasn't actually knocked down. But we jumped at the opportunity and we created a Beehive Cooperative. And this spread around, and we actually had space, and you can see it on the right. And people came there every day, and we ended up with 40 plus companies there of students trying to start companies. And we would go up there, but it was very light touch. We helped them in ways that we could, but we let them run it. And it really was just about shared space, collaboration amongst the teams there. And if they wanted something, we would bring in speakers. If they wanted some help, we would provide help in that regard. But it really was a low-touch incubator. It was a safe space where people could go, students could go, to pursue their dream of starting a company. And it was extremely popular with the students. To this day, you can go back and see people still talk about the Beehive Cooperative. We have a place here in our center called the Beehive Cooperative. And even though the big space doesn't exist anymore, but it exists in everybody's mind. And at this time in 2012, we also looked at another alternative, and that was called the accelerator. Now, the accelerator was just becoming popular. And for those of you who might know accelerators now, there's Y Combinator, there's Techstars, there's 500 Startups, there's, the accelerators became very popular. And this was all started by someone named Paul Graham, who is now quite famous. And he was a very active investor in Cambridge at the time. And he would invest in multiple different companies, give them small amounts of money, because he thought, that was what was missing, this angel investing. And so he started this thing called Y Combinator. He felt that it was inefficient to just give out angel investments and then have to have all these separate meetings, when a lot of the issues that people had were very, very common. So what Paul did was he created Y Combinator, which is a cohort of people that he invested in, and he would give them small amounts of money, and then he would push them to see what they could do within 90 days. So small amounts of money so they could run tests to see if it worked, but there was a structure there that was cohort based. You started at time equals 0, you went for 90 days, and during that period there was some sort of structure that you were going to go through that would end with a demo day. And this was a brand new idea. It was venture capital would say, we're going to come in and we're going to give you money if we like you, and we're going to give you $1 million. He gave $10,000, $20,000 to people and allowed them to kind of see if things would work out. And if they didn't work out, he was fine. He had invested $10,000 and it didn't work out, but it allowed him to put many different bets out to see if they worked. And it turned out this was a pretty good model. There are a lot of people out there who weren't VC ready, but were trying to get there, and they needed some structure to do that, some scaffolding, small amounts of money to kind of get that initial velocity, and then they were ready for venture capital. By the way, there's a typo in here. I put these together. It should say angel investor, not that Y shouldn't be on there. So people really took notice of this, and this is where companies like Dropbox came from, Airbnb, and it was very successful. Now, people didn't realize that 80% of them just kind of withered off and died, but those people often came back and started new companies, and they would go back to Y Combinator. So this became a new concept. So now what you have is you have two alternatives. You have an incubator and an accelerator. And so we looked at this at the time and said, this looks very, very interesting. We started a program called Founder Skills Accelerator, which is now known as Delta V. And as opposed to what Paul did is he took equity in for the $10,000, $20,000 he gave them. It could be 4%, it could be 5%, it could be as high as 6%. But that's what he took. We're not an investment firm, but we saw some real interesting benefits to this, because over the summer, we had 90 days where we had the campus because there's no school over the summer. And we had lots of space, which we don't have during the rest of the year. So we ran a hypothesis to see, could we apply this accelerator model to help our students? Now, to be quite honest, there was some self-motivation here, because what was happening was our best students were being drawn to Y Combinator. So the way I thought about it is, I want to keep these students here. We don't want to fight Y Combinator. I just want to keep them here at MIT until they graduate, because some of them were dropping out and going to join Y Combinator because they said, we don't have this kind of accelerator program at MIT. So we set up this thing, which is now known as Delta V. At the time, it was called Founder Skills Accelerator. And we did the same thing. We gave people space, which is not what Y Combinator did. Paul Graham said, eagles don't flock. But we talked to Brad Feld, and he does Techstars, and he said, I think there's a value to having people together, this community, which goes back to so this is part of the characteristics of an incubator. So we had space, and we provided that space for them. And this was very important because we also provided structure for them. As they went through this, in the first 30 days, they were to focus on who is your customer, and then what's the problem you're solving. In the next 30 days, they were to focus on what is the value you bring them and what is your product. And the last 30 days is the finances and how do you make this into a sustainable business. So it starts out with space, and then there's a structured program to move them through those 90 days, through that sprint. And then the third thing we gave them was a stipend. And much like Y Combinator gave them money, we gave each student who was participating in the program $2,000 a month, which seemed like a lot to me. But as I understood, our students could go off and make a lot more than that going to Wall Street or working for a big corporation. But in return for giving them $2,000 per month for each student, they had to work full time on it. So they had to be full members of our accelerator. And then the other part of the money here, the stipend, was each team got $20,000 in potential milestone payments that they could get as well. So, but that money was not just given to them as it was in Y Combinator and Techstars. They had to earn it through monthly mock board meetings. So we had space to build a cohort. Everybody was here in the space. We had structure as to what they were going through. We had financial, incentives for them to perform, and financial kind of payments to make sure they worked full time, because we believed we were not going to have a strong program unless people worked full time. And the last thing was, we offered them, like the other accelerators, a demo day at the end, so they could get status. They could have something where we had a big stage for them. We had lights, we had, cameras streamed, all kinds of publicity. So we gave them that at the end of it if they did well in the program. So we gave them space for the community, structure to learn, stipend money to be committed to it, but also milestones to achieve things. And then we gave them something at the end to kind of get on stage and show the world what they did, not just their classmates, but investors and potential customers. So what we had here in 2012 was the academic's dream, a randomized control test. We had two things going on at the same time. We had an accelerator and we had an incubator. And this is a really interesting opportunity to see the difference between those and to see the strengths and weaknesses. And that's what we did. And let me just summarize the results with one metaphor. An incubator for chicks is known as a warm place with light and temperature controlled and everything, where it's comfortable for these little chicks to grow and to become nice little chickens, and lots of them, and then grow up to be chickens. It's a safe space that improves your productivity and ability to survive. Now that metaphor, I want to be careful, because it didn't quite work out that way. In one way, it worked out very much that way. In the other, it didn't. What you're providing here is an environment where there's lots of comfort and things are easier as you're getting fed. But as you'll see, what we seek in entrepreneurship is not necessarily everything that an incubator has. There are circumstances where it makes sense. What we're looking for is in entrepreneurship is innovation-driven entrepreneurs. We're looking for people who create businesses that are scalable, that are economically sustainable, and they have a significant positive impact on the world and our environment. That's what we're looking for. These kind of growth companies, whether, if relative to impact, they could be making money, they could be having an impact on the world in other ways, they could be nonprofits. And people say what we're trying to avoid is failure, is C. But what we found in the incubator was that many of the companies ended up in this A curve. See this A curve here? This A curve means they didn't die, they just kept going along. And some refer to this A curve as the living dead, because they're not really growing very much. They might be growing a little bit, but they're not bees. They're not growing very, very rapidly. They just don't fail. And the problem here is that incubators, and what we saw in the beehive is they promoted this comfort and this warmness and the kind of social connectivity, that the urgency was not there that we saw in our Delta V program, because there was a finite period of time. And we were forcing people not to be in that stage. But when you went to, people would go to the beehive and they'd say, let's have coffee, and they would hang out with each other. So this curve, this slide right here, number 9, is the most important of the whole thing. It explains that incubators give you much more of an opportunity to be a number A, comfortable, survive, and you don't die like C. And people would say, well, that's good. Doesn't that mean an incubator is good? Actually, for us, no, it isn't. C means if you fail and come down here and you have the fortitude and skills and mindset, skill set and way of operating, that you would come back over here and you would start again and your odds of becoming a B are much, much higher. This CD learning loop is the learning loop. When you go out here on A, your learning stops, and you essentially just keep going and almost delude yourself that, our great product is going to happen. The customers are finally going to get it. With an accelerator, we pushed this up and had a forcing function, you see T1, of 90 days to say, you're either going to be a B or you're going to be a C. We don't accept A. And saying that we say around here a lot, the greatest gift that God ever gave to getting results in the world is a deadline. And the 90-day deadline forced it to make a decision between these two. And that's what we really found out. So there's a lot more detail in what happened in this kind of, I don't want to call it study, this experience we had, and it's available through this link right here. All these slides will be available to you, but references and details and examples. So what does this mean? The title of the article that I had in 2014, in March of 2014 in TechCrunch, said, "Avoid stagnation, why acceleration trumps incubation." And some people took that to mean, incubation is not valid, it's bad. And I want to be clear, that's not necessarily true. But if you only have an incubator, there's a big threat that people are going to get comfortable. And it's good to have an incubator if you have other parts of your portfolio, but you have to know what an incubator's strength is and put it in a position to lead, to succeed. What the number one value of an incubator is, in our estimation, is community. Now, there could be a very good case that shared services are good, and I see that. It makes logical sense. But I think you also have to understand that comes at a cost. There's a German poet named Rilke, and he said, "If you lead me out of the woods, I'm no more than a domesticated dog." You have to get entrepreneurs who learn how to hustle, who learn how to make things happen with limited resources. And this is something that we've learned over time. If you make it too easy for them, they're not building up those muscles. Now, that being said, providing shared services, if you can keep them hungry and humble and hustling and hardworking, it can provide a real competitive advantage. And that's what today's venture studios is, which is just a new version of incubators. And so in summary, with incubation, it can and should be part of a portfolio approach, especially when you're looking at a macro level. It's an important tool in your toolbox, but you have to know what it does and what it does well and what does not do well. And if I had to summarize this in a headline, I'd say to make great innovation-driven entrepreneurs, we don't seek comfort and ease. We don't have, we're not trying to get warm environments where you're comfortable every single day you come in and you can rub up against other chicks and feel good about it. What we seek is speed and anti-fragility. We seek that humbleness, ability to make things happen with limited resources. And that's the, what I would say, the power of accelerators relative to incubators. But again, it takes a lot of things to succeed. And if I'm to tell you that this is an algorithm that you should never have incubators, that would be very misleading and wrong. And that's not what I'm saying. What I want to, in our incubator, we had PillPack come out of that, which was actually very successful. We had Podometrics come out of it. But by and large, when you look at the broader picture, these were the factors that we saw between accelerators and incubators. So with that, do I unshare the screen now?
Thank you, Bill, for this interpretation. I have a few questions for you, but we will wait after Valeria's speech as well. There are a few topics that may also arise from the audience. that we will receive here on the right-hand side of our screen. So let me give the floor to Valeria, and maybe I can ask her, Valeria, what is the role of the policymaker? Because in the last 6 years, now almost 7 years, you have been leading this topic in our region.
Thank you. Thank you, Marco. I'm very happy to participate to this global expert talk, and it's also a very good occasion to see again Bill. We met during our common project on the Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program, and I want also to take this opportunity to thank him and all his colleagues for the advice, for the suggestion, and a sort of assessment that you made to our policy. So thanks a lot. Okay, coming to your question, Marco, we are speaking about the best practices in creating startups, and of course, I will try to share with you, with the support of some slides, our policy, our strategy, what we are trying to do in these years to promote the enterprise creation, but in other words, what we did to promote innovation in our territory. And we are convinced that startups are a very fantastic tool to promote innovation at local level, at the regional level. And so we try to support the development of new startups. And we know that they need money, of course. They need market. They need partnerships. They need mentorship and tutorships. But what I think is the most important things that startups need is the possibility to live and to develop in a dynamic ecosystems. And so what I'll try to explain is what we did to promote this research and innovation ecosystem on our territory. And if the technician can help me with the slide. Okay. And of course, when I started, and that is an important thing that I keep in my mind, I think it was important to have a vision on which to base our development strategies. And we have always imagined our territory as an open, inclusive, and attractive region. We try to make Campania region a sort of world-class, so it's an ambition objective, a world-class open innovation platform. And we wanted to promote competitiveness of our industrial system, but also we wanted to invest on talents, on human capital, and also to attract companies and new business on our territory. So this was our vision, but how to start to reach these objectives? We started from a very important ecosystem that is made by different stakeholders. And first of all, I want to mention the presence on our region of 7 universities. 7 universities that have together 12,000 of teachers and researchers and more than 200,000 of students. So a very good base of human capital on we can invest on. And also the presence of more or less 40 advanced research centers, many of national level. And I always remind that we have the largest communities of researchers of the National Research Council operating in very different disciplines, and that is very important. And we also have 7 high-tech districts that are a sort of public-private hub of innovation, working in the different vertical industries of our territories. Many structures operating in the supporting the business creations on the new startups strategies, and in particular now we have 6 certified incubators. And it's a pleasure for me to say that we have an incubator, a certified incubator in every province. So all the region is growing, and in every territory, people, young entrepreneurs can have a place where having tutorship, mentorship, and all the things that we already know. And we also attracted 2 national accelerators promoted by Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, that is our national venture capital organization. And they decided to invest on our territory with 2 new accelerators, one operating in the digital health sector and the second one in the bioeconomy sector. And this is very important because these are national hub, so it's an occasion for us to attract the new startups at national level that can come in our territory and grow with our support. And then now in these days are operating in our territories 23 acceleration programs that was promoted and financed by Campania region. For us, it's a sort of virtual circle. We started our policy to create this environment by the territory. So we give money to incubators, to accelerators, to the university, to the research centers, to scout inside their labs or to scout on the territories new potential good ideas to follow, to accompany. And so the idea is to have a new generation of potential startups, of group of entrepreneurs, and then we give them the money, the financial tools to let them grow up. In this moment, in January 2023, we have more than 1,400 innovative startups in our territory, and this is a very good result because we are the 3rd Italian region for number of innovative startups, and Naples is the 3rd Italian province. But what is also interesting is that Campania region is the first region at Italian level for younger startups. So these results are important, even if we consider that we are in the south of Italy, and we also have some critical indicators like the unemployment, for example. So, and we are not the 3rd region for gross domestic product. While the 1st region is Lombardy, that is also the 1st region for gross domestic product, we are the 7th region. And so this, I think, that testified that is we have a very dynamic and creative environment, and is a good environment for the growing of startups. So I explained the vision, I explained our ecosystem, so which are the main stakeholders that play on our territory, and this is our strategy. It's a sort of map. You can see that we start from education. We wanted to invest on our talents, on our researchers, on our young entrepreneurs. So we try to invest on them and to optimize, to exploit the know-how and the competencies that they have, but with different tools, some bottom-up financial tools, and also promoting a sort of a top-down tools, but also promoting a bottom-up approach. That's why you can see our tools to promote startups or the industrial PhD programs, that it's a way to put in contact innovators and the research system and the small and medium enterprises, but also the organization of hackathons, for example, to promote tech transfer, and I will say something later, how to work following an open innovation approach, and we made something very interesting on that. We invested on the academy promoted by our universities. They worked on the promotion of a sort of talent pool made by digital experts. It's very famous, the history of Apple that invested in Naples, in Campania region, and they opened the most important academy worldwide here in Naples. And we, as Campania region, we offer a scholarship for all the students during these 7 years of collaboration. And so we were able to attract a lot of international talents that came in Campania region and worked together with our startuppers and with our innovators. And then we had the experience of Cisco, Deloitte, Accenture, a lot of tech and technological large companies and high-tech companies. We started with the digital sector, but then followed some other vertical sector like the health sector. We have a lot of investment in research and innovation from Merck, Dompe, or Marco, you mentioned the experience with Novartis, that they opened their first innovation hub dedicated to the startups, a sort of corporate incubator in Naples. And it was the first experiment, the first hub that Novartis experienced worldwide. And then other innovation hub in the aerospace, transport, also every time involving our most important companies at national level or some international players. So at the end, this sort of attraction of international investment created a lot of opportunities for our young students, young researchers, young startups, and favored also our open innovation approach. So if I should summarize the 3 key pillars of our intervention, I can combine the promotion of entrepreneurial discovery, that was one of our strongest policy, but also the development of an open innovation contest, and also the possibility to have a global approach, and so to adopt an international perspective. We are very aware that we cannot work in every sectors. We have to invest in the sectors with the focus on technology, but in the sectors that are already present in our region, and in that sectors that can combine a strong industrial presence and a strong capacity to develop research and innovation. And so we selected 9 areas of specialization in our strategy to promote research and innovation. And so we selected these 9 areas, and we try to invest and to promote in this sector that are the ones with a higher potential to produce research, innovation, tech transfer, and of course also startup. I said that the second pillar was the approach to openness. We know that startups now are global since the beginning. Many startups have a global perspective to grow up. And so we try to promote this approach and to this open mind with our regional platform of open innovation. It's a regional platform because it's managed at regional level, but of course is an international open innovation platform. We collect the challenges for new products, new services and innovation from large companies. And here you can see the logos, the brand that worked with us. So we collect the challenges, and then we make a sort of scouting activities, a collection activities among our startups or startups coming from other territories, trying to select the best solution. We try to make a sort of matching, and we have a lot of beautiful stories. And that is important because we know that startups need market, need new market. And this is a way to overcome the market barriers that very often also the young startups face during their scale-up approach. And then the third objective is to promote their international dimensions. And so we try to make a sort of structured and periodical plan of programs of collaboration with different hubs at international level, starting from China or the USA or Israel. I'm sorry, I see that the slides are not perfect, but anyway, Paris with La French Tech, or Berlin or London. And every year we have a sort of mobility exchange of startuppers, of innovators, and we go there and we host some delegation in our territory, and we try to build collaboration and common projects. So if I have to summarize our policy, I think we try to create an environment where the public sector make the public sector, where the university have the objective to promote entrepreneurship and to scout new solution, new product, and to accompany potential entrepreneurs to make their job, and then to involve some investors that can also invest in the startups probably in a second phase. So me as a public invest at the beginning where the risk higher, and then we try to engage also the private sector that can invest more and more for the scale up of our startups. And another important rule is the one of the companies, large companies or small or medium companies that can work with our startups for a win-win approach. And the presence on our territory of incubators, different programs of accelerations, but also many co-working spaces, and the experience of some corporate incubators that are more vertical but give market to the startups operating in that field of action. I think that the possibility for startups to have different place where asking for help, for mentorship, for tutorship, for money, or just to feel more embedded in a community, as Bill said before. The dimension of the community, a place where to stay that could be material or immaterial, I think is the best situation that we can offer for the startups or the young entrepreneurs, and that is what we are trying to do in the last years. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Valeria. So please, if the audience can make any question, they will be shared here in the chat here. Just let me get back to both presentations, Bill's and Valeria's, because Valeria has presented the general frame of the local strategy. From your point of view, Bill, who have been working with REAP in many countries so far, I don't know how many cohorts, I think 7 or 8, and which means more than 9, which means more than maybe 30 countries, 40 countries.
Yeah.
So, and these countries, not all of these countries have the same conditions of Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Silicon Valley. So my question is, how do you feel that a different region can take advantage of an experience like Martin Trust that you have just presented, where you have great students, but you also have a soil of entrepreneurs, people who have already done their experiences, so who are willing to give to these students their support in becoming entrepreneurs. So do you think that the conditions that you have there are replicable, or if not, what should we do after also having heard Valeria's strategy?
Yeah, I think, first of all, every region's unique. And when people say we're the Silicon Valley, you know, in London, they said we're Silicon Roundabout. And I think that's crazy. There's never going to be any silicon built in London. You know, you have to build your own customized ecosystem. And when Valeria was going through, I was scribbling down aerospace, biotech, agritech, blue growth, energy. I think it's very important you think of where do you have an advantage to build these scalable companies first. And then that's the thing. So you can't just take the MIT model, cut, copy, and paste and put it someplace else. We have very unique assets here. We have very unique kind of dimensions of funding, you know, government and the like that just aren't the same other places. So you always have to customize it. But I think there are first principles. And let me just give one very, very quickly here. Is I think, you know, there are 5 major, you know, stakeholders. There's the academic institutions like Parthenope. It's very good to have a good academic institution. No question about it. I mean, but you don't necessarily need one. You look at some other places, but it's good to have that. That's one of the 5 stakeholders. Having good corporations, as Valeria was talking about, that's very good because that gives you demand, it gives you R&D, it kind of gives you distribution. Very, very good. Not necessarily what drives this, and it rarely drives it. Government, with all due respect, government doesn't drive it either. Valeria is doing a great job to try to facilitate that. And so that leaves us with 2 final ones, risk capital and the entrepreneurs themselves. And when you look at this over our broad swath of not just REAP, but otherwise, it's not risk capital that drives it. It's the entrepreneurs that drive this. And so my advice would be, you know, understand entrepreneurs are going to be the engine that propels this. Everybody else supports them. And then how do you get more entrepreneurs, better entrepreneurs, and connected entrepreneurs? And don't think of yourself as just a region that's standalone. You know, you have to connect to those other places and see them as net additive to it. This is what's called Metcalfe's law. Metcalfe's law says essentially the internet or a network is valuable to the level of how many nodes are on it. If you only have one node, you're never going to be that successful. So you have to think how to make these international connections, which Valeria was talking about, with the entrepreneurs there. Because here's the thing is, young people today, they're getting very similar. It used to be you couldn't tell where somebody was from in the United States. But now young people are very similar throughout the United States. And that goes beyond boundaries. When I come to, we're going to go to Greece in 2 months. When I go there, I can talk to young people and they're reading the same books. They're seeing the same movies. They have the same ambitions. They're talking about the same entrepreneurial stories. And so I think you're going to be connected, not just at the government level, at the corporate level, not just the academic level, but at this entrepreneurial level, because ultimately that's the engine that's going to drive this. Now, am I biased? Valeria's looking at me. Am I biased? And I am 100% biased because I'm an entrepreneur.
No, you're right. What I can say, maybe Valeria can add on it, is that we in our territory, maybe at country level, I would say, but in the southern of Italy is tougher. We miss one. Historically, Italy has had many entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Italian history is full
Absolutely.
of entrepreneurs, traditional successful entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Of course, modern, the new generation of entrepreneurs has some troubles in, starting and growing. And one of the hot topics that we have, so we have a propension to have a new generation of startuppers, but we are missing two of the things that you have mentioned before at a natural level, and then maybe artificially Valeria and others have worked on it. So we miss a generation of angels.
Yes.
And we definitely miss a strong generation, or not a generation, a number of investors, of venture capital funds. So Valeria, in the last 6 years, have worked on this, but she has done it as an institution, not as a professional investor. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Valeria can add something about that.
Yes, I think that we know that Italy has still a long road to go for being perceived as a very interesting market for venture capitalists. We know that there are other countries like Great Britain or France or Germany that was able to attract more money. And for the experience in Italy, what happened till now is that the venture capitalist private money was concentrated in the area of Milan, in the north of Italy. So the experiences already done till now are concentrated in Milan or in Rome, that is, of course, the capital. No, so the most important areas of our country. But I think that also with the push of Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, that is our is our national venture capital organization. Things are a little bit changing. There are some specific tools for the southern regions, or also some specific tool for investing in different vertical sectors. And there is a sort of competition at national level from the different territories that try to attract this national hub or these national tools. And we are happy that in Campania region we were able to attract this kind of national accelerators that bring with them also money for the different level of developing of the startups. So they have money for the first activities, but also for the scale up of startups. And then in the last 2 years, I received different solicitations, different questions also from other ventures. Generally, they are very specialized in different sectors. For example, in the life science sectors, and it's clear that for every sector you should have a different policy of attractions. It's very different if you speak in the digital world or in the deep tech world. In the digital, with the digital venture, or with a life science venture, or a venture operating in the aerospace field. So what we are trying also in that field is to have a sort of position paper where I can easily present to possible ventures or private investors the talent pool that we have, and the possibility to make partnership and networks, because also the ventures are interested in to see which is the environment in which the startup they invest could grow. So we are preparing a sort of, as I told you, a sort of position paper, sector by sectors, to with the aim to offer a clear or a possible clear framework, which is the context in which they put their money. I can see you. I can hear.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Sorry. No, I was recalling some the questions that are coming from the audience. One of the questions asks, "What is the role of universities in scouting and in sparking the process of startup creation?"
Yeah, can I take that one, Valeria?
Yeah, sure, of course you can.
Marco, these questions that are coming in are great, and they're interrelated. I think that the role of the university is very, very important. It is not an economic development agency. That's the government's job. Its job is not an investment. Its job is a role of educating talent, drawing talent, getting talent, educating talent, and putting it out. Their job is not to catch fish. Their job is to teach them how to fish, which is really, really important. It goes back to the point that if you have universities that attract people and then they create these networks, it's a very positive effect for the region. And it's one of the places, like the governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, who actually just resigned, most popular governor, they said, how do you create an entrepreneurial ecosystem? And he said, it's easy. I was like, oh my God, how is it easy? He said, you just have MIT settle in your state and you wait 150 years, because the talent that it attracts, the talent that it puts out, creates that networking effect that you create and connectivity to everybody else. And innovation is a global sport. You've got to know what's going on. So going back to university, its job is to attract talent, to develop talent, and to create those kind of network effects and have a platform on which to discuss this that's ecumenical. It's not trying to make money off it. Look, Parthenope, I don't know whether Google will be here 100 years from now. You know who will be here? MIT and Parthenope University. And so we can play the long game. We can focus on teaching people how to fish. I love the other questions out there, by the way. I'm refraining from jumping to those, Marco and Valeria.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's another topic, because you and also Valeria, you were presenting these two models, the incubation, acceleration. I also have a few questions about that, but let me go to the question that comes from the floor. Now we are evolving. Are we evolving? That's the question, to other models, because someone from the floor is asking, is the creation of startups a product that can be a process that can be standardized? And they mentioned the new hot topic, which is the venture building model. So is the venture building model really something that we have to look after, or is it something wrong? And the creation of a firm, of a startup, is like a masterpiece. So it's a fully impossible to, it cannot be standardized as a process. What do you think? Both, also Valeria, because I think Valeria has some ideas on this.
Yeah, Valeria, you go first, and then I'll
Okay.
Very strong opinions here.
Thank you. I'm very interested in deepening the model of the venture builder. And I think it's very interesting because it's a sort of a combination of corporate incubator and open innovation, in the sense that the venture builder is a company linked to private venture, and they go together on the market to scout and to select new potential startups that can accelerate the innovation process inside the sector. So I like this model. We are trying to adopt this model in particular for the aerospace sector for many reasons that I haven't the time to explain. But anyway, till now, I have not a direct experience, but we are working on that.
Bill. Okay, I have very strong opinions on this, and you'll have to stop me after 2 minutes. Okay, so first of all, entrepreneurship is not a black art. It is not something that only Picasso can do and these other people do. That is a very, very unhelpful mental model for people to have. We see today, and I just had this very famous VC call up. He said, we're all coming around to your point of view on this. Entrepreneurship should be approached in an engineering manner. It is a discipline that can be taught. And so the more engineering we look at now, the more systematic approach, we're seeing the results at MIT now of 70% of our students who come up with ideas and go through the process, they're still in business. So you can dramatically increase it. Can you make it an algorithm? My answer is absolutely not. It's not an art, but it's not a science either. It's a craft where you can teach people how to do it and do it better. And by that, I mean, you will never have an algorithm that you just put it in. You can't go to GPT and say, give me the next great company. It's not going to happen because it's always looking backwards. And when you see this, you understand that it will never be an algorithm because the nature of a successful new, innovative new organization is it's never been done before. And so there can never be an algorithm to do something that's never been done before. And the people who have tried to do this, and God bless them, they have said, we are going to build a company that will build companies. They have failed 99% of the time. Now that being said, this idea that we're going to do that and we can just have irreplaceable parts, they haven't worked. Now, that is not completely true because today you have very interesting, Valeria mentioned this, in the biotech industry, you are starting to see Flagship, this company called Flagship here, have a very systematic model that is working in biotech that's drawing it out. And you have other people that are also doing that. So we're seeing a progression here that maybe this works in some industries. And I'll just go back to something Valeria said, which I want to emphasize and do +1 on. Industries dramatically different. Like there are certain first principles that work and you can apply them to all industries. But when you're talking about digital, you've got a different clock speed than what you got if you're developing an app than if you're doing, nuclear technology, tough tech. And that's why, there's another question here. Accelerators have worked for things that have very rapid turnaround, that loop. But you can't develop a new drug in 90 days. It's just not going to happen, right? And it's very hard to make any progress at all there. So the idea that there's this holy grail to start companies if we could only come up with the algorithm and AI will find it for us, not true. Should we take a more systematic view towards entrepreneurship? 100% we should. But it's engineering of something that's never been done before. So it will never be as simple as a company building companies and spitting them out.
Well, that's very interesting. You mentioned also Flagship, which is a very interesting. I'm not sure that Flagship is following the model of the venture building model, or basically they actually, they chase the brain and then they create the company. That's the idea. That's the model. Is that correct?
Yes. They have a systematic way that they basically take people and add people to it. It's not like you need this unique person at the beginning. They look at technologies, they look at problems, they map them, and then they have a process in here which they can take many different people and put them in there.
Okay, but then if you have to develop a drug where you need more patient money, it takes so much longer. What is the role of accelerator or incubators in that case?
So so you have to have a more custom. Now we throw all those people into one, and we have no choice because we only have 90 days. And what we see is that people who are doing healthcare stuff, they're not going to develop their product in that short time period. But what they are going to do is they are forced to get much stronger clarification of who the customer is and what's the problem they're solving. Because the number one failure point for people putting money into startups is they don't really know what the problem is. They're more in love with their product than they are with the problem. And that is it. And then even when you love the problem, you have to still do this very rigorous market segmentation. And that's what you can do. You can do that in 90 days and get progress on that. You're not going to develop the product. Now, a lot of people who want accelerators, or VC funds who want it, which I think, by the way, I would not put VC funds, the shortage of VC funds and angel investors in Campania in the same boat. Shortage of angels, really big problem. Shortage of VC funds, not as big a problem. If you show me a really good company that's that's getting to Series A because some angels have gotten it there, it's got customer traction, money will come. There's so much money out there right now. They'll put it on wire, they'll put it in the wire, and it'll come over to them, and they'll watch them carefully. And so the world is more connected. The problem is at those early stages. So I hope that answers your question, Marco.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. So we have a list of questions which is growing second after second. We still have 10 minutes to go. Let me check. Let me take. Okay, there is a question that regards the coexistence of the two models, but the question is, aren't the two models, incubation and accelerators, dedicated to two different stages of growth of the firm, or it's not true? This?
No, it is absolutely. It's not a question of either or. There is no single bullet here that will solve this, and that was the problem with incubators at the beginning. Like people said, incubators are the solution. If we just have incubators, we'll get if we just have an incubator, we'll get lots of chicks coming out of it, thinking that that model is, and that those chicks represent incubators. It doesn't work that way. Incubators have a very good, and you saw it in Valeria's thing. There's a role for incubators and there's a role for accelerators. I believe accelerators are the ones that kind of push it up, and then you get to a certain point, and now those shared services and other things. Now, if you're talking about tough tech type of things like biotech, an incubator is going to be required because you've got that longer period of time and the shared services are more valuable to you. Yes, but you still need that forcing function. You got to understand its weaknesses. So I don't think it's either or. I think it's both.
Let me go to another question here, where they are mentioned both business angels and venture capitalists. Now, we know that here we don't have business angels, or maybe I may ask also Valeria, because Valeria has done a great effort by, I just share it with you, Bill. She has done a great effort with providing grants as a business angel. So the region was the business angels, basically. The problem is that the region, when you have a grant, it's not the same thing of having a partner who gives you money, because probably the trust of venture capitalists is different from when there is a private investor compared to a grant. So Valeria has done this job. I don't know if we have results, Valeria, of what has happened after your grants giving to the company. So if after you have given grants, there have been an involvement of venture capitalists. Valeria, can you hear me?
It seems like I can hear you. Oh, sorry.
No, I didn't understand if it was for me or for Bill. Sorry. What we are trying to do is a sort of combination of both. Saying we have invested on the early stage, also on new companies, so giving the opportunities to many researchers or innovators. So we try to cover the first stage and the highly risky stage and then trying to have a sort of partnership with some financial institution to join this process for the next phases of development of the company. And with the new programming of the financial programming of the European Commission for 2021-2027, Europe asks us to use in a more strong and effective way the innovative finance. So we, in the future, we will not use only grant, but we are, let me pass the term, quite obliged to use mixed form to sustain the development of companies. And of course, it's a new challenge. And what we are trying to do in this phase is to listen to the needs of this venture or financial organization, and also to understand their internal dynamic, so to be ready to prepare a sort of portfolio of different startups that could be of interest for them, considering the different stage of their development. Anyway, it's a new job.
Thank you, Valeria. We have time for another question.
Marco, can I just make a comment on that one? I think that's a really important point here.
Go ahead.
Valeria is doing what she can to get money. Angel investors are about a lot more than money, just to be clear. Like when we talk to our students here and they go out to get funding, we don't want them to just get money. We want them to get an angel investor. And when you go back to Y Combinator, it was Paul Graham's involvement with them. And that's the hard part. VCs aren't going to get down. It's high touch. It's ego. It's helping them. It's providing emotional support. It's helping with all those little things to fight through. And I will just say this to Campania and other places is you're not going to have those angels right out of the bat, but you know where they are? There's Sal Lapoli up here in Chelmsford, Mass, who was from Naples, who's been a very successful entrepreneur. And leveraging them to get them connected back to you is what the Israelis have done. This is what the Irish did. This is what the Scottish do. Getting your diaspora, who are very successful in other parts of the world, like the United States, connected back into that and getting them to give. We see this model happening right now with Greece. So I would say sometimes we measure on the wrong KPI, how much money is getting to them. You have to look at the quality of the money. The Israeli model has just been, and Irish model has proven how successful they are. And it's much more, angels are more than the money. You don't just want the money. You got to have these people who are involved. And that's what you don't get with a VC, because they're not going to go that low. They got to stuff $2 million in and get 20% of the company. And then they got to have a whole bunch of them, but they can't spend too much time on any one.
I like this, Bill. Bill, you mentioned it to me, the diaspora topic. For those who do not know, the idea of Bill is that we should target Italians who have been successful abroad and want to give back something to Italy again. And this has happened with the Irish people. We have a history of track record of these cases. We have Lia Iacocca, who was from Campania, who created many years ago. Lia Iacocca was the CEO and president of Chrysler. It was the one who invented the Ford Mustang, if I'm correct. And he invested in his hometown. Of course, at that time, he did something which is different. We didn't have really venture capital. It was an initiative for his hometown. But people want to give back, those who have been successful. We have the case of Paolo Fresco, former president of CEO of Fiat, who did the same. He invested on Parkinson morgue to try to figure out how to solve the problem. So this is an idea that we should work on. So it's a homework that we are leaving us with, I believe. That's our homework. So let's scout, not for companies, but for those who can support them. So Italians who have been successful and want to get back. Also, I talked to Sal Lupoli that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
And Sal would be willing to invest, for example, in the food industry in Italy. So he's a successful.
You're asking them to come back to the North Pole. You're asking them to come back to Campania. They want any reason to do that. I mean, it's a huge advantage. I hear you have very good food there too.
Yeah, incredible. Not like in Bologna, much better, Bill. So I think we have reached almost the end.
Marco, can I just jump on one question here? Postura has a question that I just want to address here very quickly. It says, how's the AI coming revolution will shape the future of startups environment? This is the most profound question you could ask right now. It's not just AI. That's like saying technology. If you haven't, anyone listening to this, if you haven't gotten on and tried out ChatGPT, you have not seen the future. And the future isn't the future. The future is here now. And a generative AI, very specifically machine learning AI, looking at what's out there and making, if you don't understand that, you're going to be at a huge competitive disadvantage. And I mean that in the most serious way. This is going to be a huge disruption. That's bad news for you if you're not willing to take advantage of it. If you're willing to take advantage of it, it's a huge advantage. And I heard someone say, oh, this stuff's gonna replace us in their jobs. No, the technology is not going to replace you in the job. What's going to replace you in the job is someone who learns how to use that technology. And I encourage everyone on this call, I have no vested interest in this, but if you got to go out and learn how to use ChatGPT, just go out and play with it, because it's like saying, I'm not going to learn how to use a calculator. I'm not going to learn how to use a VisiCalc. I'm not going to learn how to use word processing. It is real. This future is here now. And the question is, how are you going to harness the power of this thing called generative AI? And it is Postilla. It's extremely profound. It's going to change everything. Mark Andreessen said, software is going to eat the world. Guess what? It has eaten the world. And that's just a given now. That's table stakes. What's going to eat the world going forward now is this generative AI and how you do machine learning and data analytics. And that's a call to action for everyone on this call. And it's a huge opportunity for those who embrace it. For those who choose to ignore it, it's a huge threat.
Thank you, Bill. Valeria, do you want to give a final comment?
No, just to say that the AI, of course, has a very important potentialities, and I think we benefit also, just to give an example, in the life sciences research project, there are a lot of very interesting perspective for the personal medicine or the predictive medicine. There are a lot of research projects and a lot of new way to manage also the sanitary problems and life sciences challenges using AI. And so it's a very enormous platform of experimentations, and of course we could speak a lot about also some limits or some fears that people have about from the how human and high. Okay, there is a sort of trade-off, and there's a lot to research also from this perspective.
Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Bill. Thank you to all the team from MIT Global Programs that are following us tonight. So, Bill, there are many questions that we cannot answer. We would need much more time, and people are very excited. We have been very excited. So I thank you, everyone. It's Friday night, so it's time to take advantage of our weekend. So, ciao, everyone, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Bill.
Ciao,
Bye-bye.
Bill.
See you.
Ciao, Valeria.
See you. Bye.